Carter G. Woodson was concerned about the fact that blacks were often ignored from American history and many times misrepresented in American history. And rather than sit back and wait for the government to create a curriculum, he decided he was going to create his own.
Welcome to the SIP, where the South say.
What it do, YouTube? It's your man G. Lewis. Welcome back to the SIP. I had somebody ask me the other day, why do we need Black history? Why not just teach history? I tried to explain to this person that it wasn't about Black History Month. The problem is, who controls the story that's being told? I explained to this person that in 1926, Carter G. Woodson was frustrated at the fact that blacks were often ignored or misrepresented in American history, and that school books barely mentioned the accomplishments of blacks in this country. And when they did, it was often through a distorted or racist lens. So Carter G. Woodson decided to create Negro History. And the reason he decided to create this, because he wanted to highlight the accomplishments of blacks in this country, and also to educate the public about those achievements, and to fight back against the racist narratives and historical accounts of American history. I told this person, Carter G. Woodson didn't want Black History Month. He didn't want a Black History Week. What he wanted was the integration of Black Americans' accomplishments and contributions to this country to be incorporated into the public school books. And here we are, 100 years later, still fighting over the facts, whether or not Black American accomplishments should be included in the classrooms. He chose Negro History Week to be celebrated in February. It was the month of two of the most revered people in Black American families during that time, which were Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Carter realized that this was an opportunity to seize and build upon the momentum of the respect that the Black community had for both of those figures at the time. And he did, effectively. But in 1970, there began to be this uprising in the Black community from college students and activists pushing for more time for Black American history to be taught. So in 1970, on the 50th anniversary of Negro History Week, then President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, and he urged all American citizens to honor the all too neglected accomplishments of Black Americans to this country. After sharing that bit of information with this person still did not get why we needed a Black History Month after all of that. And so you know what I decided? I come away understanding this, man. When people are willfully ignorant, there's nothing that you, I, or anyone else can say is going to change their mind. And people who are willfully ignorant, I have no time for. By this person willfully ignoring what I just told them about the contributions being neglected, and that Carter G. Woodson created Black History Week or Negro History Week at the time to combat all the negative misinformation that was out there about the Black contributions to this country. This person still could not see my point. So I left the conversation alone, which leads me to my next point. Right now, there's this trend going on where everybody's speaking about the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime performance. And there are a lot of people in this country who did not understand it, nor did they want to understand it. So they just pushed back as it was a bland, lackluster performance and that no one was looking for a history lesson, things of that nature. But there were those out there who were hunger for knowledge and thirst for information, decided to do a deep dive. The one particular phrase, 40 acres and a mule, caught the attention of many, and they began to develop their own videos about what he meant by the 40 acres and a mule, because American classrooms have not taught 40 acres and a mule and what it meant in historical context in this country. So there are those out there who are willing to do the work to educate themselves beyond what they've been taught in classrooms, which leads to my next point. We as Black Americans, whether you're young or old, we cannot afford to be willfully ignorant about our history as it pertains to the contributions made by our ancestors to this country. Because what ends up happening is that people could tell us anything about us and we believe it. Think about that for a moment. If young Black boys in classrooms learn about Dr. Charles Drew and his contributions to science, how he was able to take blood and separate the red blood cells from the plasma, don't you think that they would feel some type of way about their own self-esteem? This is what we need to do. We need to discover our contributions to this country. beyond the classrooms. You can't be lazy. You cannot afford to be lazy. You have to pick up a book and want to find out for yourself. What were these accomplishments and by whom? Think about it. Some young kid sitting in the classroom, he learns that Benjamin Banneker was the chief architect that designed the layout for what we know as Washington, D.C., and that he also invented one of the first clocks. And it's been rumored that the name Big Ben was a nod to Benjamin Banneker. Just think about what that does to a young black boy's psyche and self-esteem. On the other hand, think about what it does to his psyche and self-esteem when he hears about everyone in history and their contributions in this country, except people who look like him. He began to believe that my people didn't contribute nothing to this country. He may even start to believe the worst of what people are saying who don't look like him, and as it pertains to black people in this country. That's why I say every day should be Black History Day in your family and in mine, until we come to an understanding. And when I mean we, I mean this country as a collective. Until we come to the day where we can say that the contributions made in this country, regardless of race, skin tone, were made by all Americans, and start to highlight those accomplishments by all. Until that day happens, we have to keep doing a deep dive beyond the classroom. Teach your kids about American history as it pertains to the contributions of blacks in this country. Remember, Carter G. Woodson, he didn't want a Negro History Week, and he didn't want, I would say he wouldn't have wanted a Black History Month. As they said, he wanted to integrate Black Americans' accomplishments in this country into the classrooms. And here we are, nearly 100 years later, and we still fighting over whether or not Black Americans' accomplishments should be taught in the classroom. It's a reason that the dominant culture does not want all of American history to be incorporated into the classrooms. And I will not begin to speak for them or think for them, but there's definitely a reason. Why pile Black American accomplishments in this country, as well as the history of slavery in this country? Why compile it with all the other controversial things that you've placed it with to say that doesn't need to be taught in the classroom? It's for a reason. We'll sweep them all together, and there'll be some who will look like me who will say, yeah, I don't want that taught in the classroom, while at the same time neglecting the fact that what's really being done is there's been a dismissive tone undercurrent in America that doesn't want the true representation of the Black American accomplishment to be taught in the classrooms. That's why Carter G. Woodson was concerned about the fact that blacks were often ignored from American history and many times misrepresented in American history. And rather than sit back and wait for the government to create a curriculum, he decided he was going to create his own. And it started with 1 week of acknowledgement, and it developed into something of a month over those years. See, Kendrick Lamar woke up a thirst in some young and older people. I was watching one video where this elderly Caucasian woman co-signed what he had said. And not that she needed to co-sign it, not that what she shared has any more validity than what we already know about the 40 acres and a mule thing. But nonetheless, it was refreshing for me to see this old white woman go back in time in history and say, yeah, I remember the Homestead Act. I remember when Woodrow Wilson opened the floodgates to immigrants. They call it the westward expansion, where they said that west of the Mississippi River, you can go out there and forge your own, your new life here in America, and go out there, take a spike, drive it into the ground with a flag, and claim so many acres for your own. But guess who was left out of having that opportunity? Those who look like you and I. The newly freed slaves were not given the opportunity to go out there and plant a flag and claim land for themselves. And she shared that story of how she knew about this history. So when people say, oh, you need to pull yourself up out of bootstraps, this, that, and the third. And when I hear people who look like me who regurgitate those same talking points, I used to get upset, but I don't know more. I come to understand that it's either a willfully ignorance, lack of understanding, or someone who is being complicit in order to be selfishly given their 40 acres and a mule. I ain't mad. Why get mad? We have to get proactive. Don't get reactive. Become proactive. And that's what this video is about. I chose to drop this video during Black History after hearing all the critiques and reviews of Kendrick Lamar's performance. It just ties into how history American history. To be more specific, Black Americans' history is more so important than ever. And it is being erased and ignored, as Carter G. Woodson said, and misrepresented for a reason. I've seen some videos where some Africans have expressed their frustration in being indoctrinated when they came to this country with a preconceived notion that Black Americans who have ancestral ties to this land were lazy and didn't accomplish and achieve as much as they have or we have because of our laziness. But one particular young man expressed when he got to this country and he saw what really was going on, he couldn't help but to share that with fellow Africans, because what he did was what most will not do. He did not come here separating himself from our culture. He came in and embraced the community. It's like he got behind the veil and he began to discover all the disparities and the hypocrisy in this country as it pertained to people who look like us. He knew that he didn't fit the mold because he was an immigrant who just happened to be Black, as he see it. But in this country, he saw the Blacks who have been here since the inception of this country were targeted to be left out of many things, opportunities for loans, for businesses, and their families could come over here and apply for grants and business loans and get it. This is not some propaganda that I'm spreading. It's a video of this African young man who shared his own family's story. And see, that all goes back to the history. When you live in on a different continent, and the country who has mastered propaganda and media, which is America, Hollywood, whether you like it or not, is a propaganda machine. Movies, music, it all moves across the world. And when it does, those images and those messages are taken into the crevices of villages in Africa, in towns all across Europe, and in little huts and villages in the Philippines, as well as the inner cities. That's why they say hip hop music is revered and embraced internationally now. Why? Because it was promoted beyond America borders. Unfortunately, a lot of the messaging also was exported abroad. So the words, the imagery, lyrical imageries, all get digested by these immigrants, and their lack of knowledge and their ignorance, they don't know what is reality and what is fantasy. And they don't know what percentage of those stories being shared in those songs are of our community. They don't know if that's only 5 or 10% of the 100% experience of Blacks in this country. So what they get is this overblown perception about Black American culture and history. And all too often, movies get greenlit, artists get signed to contracts with words and images and stories that are negatively highlighting parts of our community and not giving the full visual of the bouquet, what is called the American experience. America is not just one particular flower in the vase. The gangsterism, the drama movies, or the comedy, that belittles one another, and the buffoonery. No disrespect to everybody who's in the entertainment business and get their money, but that is only one particular flower in the vase. But you don't know that if you come from Senegal, Ghana. You don't know that if you come from Russia. You don't know these things. The Philippines, China, Japan. All you know is what you are being presented. And that leaves you with a full understanding of Black culture in this country. And nothing could be farther from the truth. I just want to take this time during this month, Black History Month, to share with you my thoughts, only my thoughts and views about how the Kendrick Lamar performance and Black History Month came together this year. The planets aligned for a dialogue to be created, for conversations to be had, for discoveries to be found. Because one young Black man chose to go against the grain of his profession and not just give you a spectacular dance for the camera type of performance, but rather one that made you think if you wanted to, and to shut out and turn the TV off if you didn't. I'm G. Lewis. Till my next video, take care of yourself and fam. Always take care of your people. God bless.